Bergschrund Project, music and storytelling that brings the spirit of climbing to honor the past.
Jim, you make me want to wish I wrote more down. My name is Alana Kambury, and this group tonight's actually really special. Matt is a climbing partner of mine, 6 a.m., pretty solid, every week. Hans and I have gotten to set together in the years past. Jim, I've climbed a lot of your routes.
You like them?
I like them. I kind of hated on Broughton's for a while, and then I loved it again.
Yeah, where is it?
And yeah, actually, my story started with our last speaker tonight, Matt Spahn. We grew up climbing together 20 years ago, give or take. No, actually, I think 20. At Stoneworks as kids, we were like first generation gym rats, and yeah, it's one of those things that bites, and you meet the right people, and you travel the right places, and you try hard, and it never gives up. I was really honored and lucky to have actually a female mentor from the get-go. I was a misfit. I did not belong. I was the girl with the bowl cut and the glasses in middle school who made no friends until she went to a climbing gym. And lucked out at Stoneworks to have people that would pick on me, but like lovingly, and have Molly Beard as my coach. And I owe a lot to her. And she was Kelton's coach. She was Alex Borst's coach. She was Matt's as well. A lot of folks who've been in this community for a long time learned a lot from her. At Stoneworks that Matt runs now with his dad. And as the years have gone by, I realize how unique it was to have a female mentor in this space. And even how that page has turned, how I got to coach at Club Sport back in the day. When I came back to Portland about 12 years ago, and seeing the kids that I coach now coaching too, it's a little meta and a little bit of a mindfuck, but it's okay. And that guidance, she was also my mentor to be a setter as well, and I had somebody recently be like, remember that one problem you set at the circuit like 8 years ago? It's like, no, I totally don't, but I'm really glad you do. And I attribute that to having people who treat it like an art. And climbing is that. Climbing is that thing that Matt said was that just can grab you, and that's kind of what you obsess about. And that we're lucky that for the most part, most of the people in our community are pretty amazing. So we get to obsess about something amongst others that have different interests as well. Like, I honestly don't like climbing with the person all the time that only can talk about climbing. I love to hear about their art or their architecture or their work or their kids or their partner, good or bad. It's like all there, and we have time when we spend those weeks and months traveling, killing our feet, destroying our skin, sleeping off of the shittiest ground to try hard and appreciate each other's time. I think a big takeaway now that my life, I stepped out of working in the climbing world and trying to have a business and a company, is how much respect I learned from climbing and from the people I got to climb around, and that if I just showed up and was passionate and had the psych, people would just take me seriously. It didn't matter how short I was or what my body fat was or that I was a woman. They would just, if I was psyched, they were psyched. I always say this about folks in Wyoming. Like, you show up to Wyoming and it's not how hard you climb. If you climb, that's great. And And that still is true in Portland. This is why I've stayed and loved this town in Portland, because I had somebody once, totally from Colorado, be like, oh, you're not a real climber if you live in Portland. And be like, fuck off. Like, are you serious? Like, yeah, and this is why I don't like climbing with folks in Colorado. You know, Portland's changing. We all know that. I grew up here. I've been back for a long time. And there's a lot of frustration with how Portland's changing. And there's a lot of change in climbing, too. And there's a lot of frustration for how climbing's changing, too. But none of us started it. None of us are native to Portland 20 generations. And I think that's something we all have to remember, is to welcome everybody that's new and be those mentors for everybody that's new. Because I think there's like academic studies that if you like, you know, block out a community that comes in, they will create their own society, their economy, whatever. Say, huh? Oh. Yeah, no, we're not antelope, but it's cool. But really, in climbing, and both in Portland, I think it's our responsibility with those who've been here for a while to, yeah, it's hard when Smith has, like, when we used to bitch that there was 20 cars at Smith, and now there's 200 plus. That's hard. It's frustrating. But if we get angry at those people and we get angry at those moving to Portland, it's not going to help the situation. So, I mean, my hope is a bridge, and it's the bridge that I've experienced. I rolled up in Vedavu when I was 18 with like blood blisters on my tips because of 10 sleep. And Bob Scarpelli rolled up in like a 1970 Suburban, and his pit bull Rambo jumped out. And he looked at me and he's like, are you a fucking sport climber? And I like, kind of looked at him scared, like, yeah, maybe. And he was like, yeah, you want to learn how to crack climb? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, all right. And 2 weeks, I got to climb with Bob Scarpelli, who was a legend. And through him, like, I got to learn how to place big bros from Craig Lubin, who designed them. Like, it was 2 weeks of my life that I will never forget. And yeah, he cursed at me every time I tried to grab a face hold and not put my hand in like something that like a number 4 would fit, and just like start crying literally, and just get your fucking hands off of that face, you sport climber. And then he would sneak me a beer because I was 18 afterwards, and just like not expect anything sketchy, and say, I'll pick you up at 9 o'clock tomorrow, you better be ready. And that sort of like extension of invitation, and I did not come from his world. I didn't look from his world. And he gave that invitation. And you know, I know time is precious for some of us that are juggling either jobs or family or work, and when somebody's like, take me climbing, you're like, you know, but that's my weekend. I got to take my boyfriend and our friend out, and with Steve-O, who, if you guys know Steve-O, God bless his soul, is creating an amazing area in Ecuador that you should all go to. But we went to Trout last week, and I watched these two guys climb cracks for the first time, and they were giggling. They were straight up giggling, and I had forgotten that. I had forgotten what it was like to give what Bob gave me. And so, again, we all can be mentors. And it's, if you've been climbing 1 year or 20 years or, Jesus Christ, Jim, like 50 years, it's a thing that the climbing community have, and I think there's a lot more people in Portland that would really benefit from being welcomed into this community at any age or any demographic. This is a pretty great group of people. So to that, my 2 favorite pieces of gear are my hands, which I think I was given shit today from my friends who get pedicures. And my climbing partners. I think if you mistreat them, they both fail on you. And I have a huge respect for anybody, and people do climb without them. So hands and climbing partners, take care of them.